we don't have to do the split screen. We just have to sit awkwardly close to one another.
I was going to say, it's really awkwardly close Tuesday teacher talk.
Yeah, we'll just talk to one another while looking in the screen. So those of you that are checking this out, this is my co-teacher, Miss Younkers. And if you're not as familiar with the teaching world, what that means is we both teach the same class, and we just kind of like split it up into parts, but we're both in the same class every day. And so I've had a lot of people reach out and ask about teaching special ed, or like questions about IEPs or differentiating instruction. And so I thought it would be really helpful to have someone that I knew and someone that I trusted come on and talk about a number of those things. And so we're going to do that tonight. Mm-hmm. So, Miss Younkers, could you please talk about yourself a little bit?
Happy to. Hi, or YouTube, you now. I'm Bethany, so I have been teaching special ed. This will be my 8th year. I've taught in emotional support, learning support, self-contained. I taught in Hawaii for 2 years. That was pretty cool. Mostly in Philly, though. And before that, I was working with the ARC, which is Association for Retarded Citizens. So I've worked with kids of all different age groups into adults with different neurological differences. So
why special ed?
So unlike you, I knew what I wanted to do from the time I was really young. Yeah. So I had a friend in elementary school. His name was Glenn. He had Down syndrome. And he was just like my bestie. And I think my teachers I'm going to fault my teachers for this. They kind of molded me to be a teacher. Because I was always sat next to like the youth of the class, like the class clowns and the kids who like didn't do their work. I was the student that you put anywhere because they're like...
You were the buffer child.
I was.
Yeah.
I was the buffer child. And then, yeah, I used to, like, line my stuffed animals up and, like, read books and make them do work.
Nice.
That's what I did.
That's actually...
As a kid.
I love that idea, though.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that, like, I've talked about this a little bit more, and if you have any questions about special education, you can go ahead and start putting them in on YouTube or YouNow, or you could just go ahead and type in any questions you have about anything, and we'll try and get to all those questions as we can. I also didn't say, if you're watching this on the replay, you can go ahead and type your questions in the bottom also, and we'll get back to every single one of those as well. And so if I don't get back to it, or you have something for Younkers, which, by the way, when you start teaching, you don't call people by their first name anymore. It's just Younkers. No one has a first name. So you can type those in, and I'll absolutely get back to those. Or if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go ahead and type those in on YouTube, or send me an email or a DM or a message, and either one of us will get back to those as well. So this year, we're starting a new class, and it's not completely original to the world, but it's different for our school. Miss Younkers came back halfway through last school year when I had already had 2 co-teachers leave, because I'm very hard to teach with, apparently. And so we started teaching together, and it went so well, but we started kind of being concerned for students that were going to go into 10th grade next year. Not to say anything about our 10th grade staff, but the fact that when kids go from one grade to the next and they don't know the teacher, there's always that dip in the beginning of the year of like figuring out different people's personalities and their learning styles and where to seat kids. And we just felt like if we took students from the 9th grade into the 10th grade, my wife is walking all around the table right now.
And this is why I teach what I teach, because I can't. I'm like,
this is because the beast got out of the kitchen. So she's doing a good job. She's like a ninja wife. So that's why she's not so secret. But anyway, we have this idea of like teaching the kids 2 years in a row, and what that allows us to do is already know who they are, already know where they should sit, already know if they should have been in that class to begin with in 9th grade or not have been in that class. And so, and also for next year, the kids that are moving up until 10th grade or into 10th grade, we can pull maybe some other kids from other classes that we think would be really good to be in a class like that, to be support for students who might need it, or to be a good example for students that might need it. So we'll be teaching 9th grade and 10th grade, and then the students that have us in 9th grade this year, next year they will have us in 10th grade. And so we both also decided that, and I talked about this in my latest video on YouTube, this is going to be the greatest year ever. And so we just had a meeting actually right before this broadcast on some of the things we're going to do to make it the greatest year ever. So, yeah, that's it. So we're going to go into the first question. Michael A. Kessinger. Oh, man. I'm awesome. I'm so awesome at it.
Kessinger.
See, I'm glad you're as good as I am with saying names.
Well, we got a like.
So, love looping. My mom, is that the term for what we're doing?
Yeah, looping. Okay.
So, my mom has been looping with her little ones for 20 years and refuses to do it any other way, hoping to get the opportunity to do it too. I'm really hoping that it works out. I know folks have tried it at our school before with varying degrees of success, and sometimes that's because someone just like wasn't in love with teaching that class. Because as you know, like when you start teaching, you don't always get the class that you wanted to teach. Like sometimes they put you in whatever they want to. So I feel like this was our opportunity to like make a class and then just do it. Yeah. Like we kind of like put this wish out there to the school, and then they just granted us every single thing that we asked for. So now it's kind of up to us.
Yeah.
Do you feel any pressure about that?
Slightly. I feel like I can understand why you would like looping with your kids because you already know their strengths and weaknesses. So like going into the school year in September, I don't have to worry about like figuring out like what they need to work on, because for our sophomores anyway, well, we know them, and yes. So we know what we need to look for. We know where we need to sit certain people, and I feel like that lag that they have from like summer regression, we're just going to close it a little bit quicker because we already know what we need to work on with them.
Yeah.
So pressure. Nah.
Any pressure in the fact that we told those 9th graders that if they have us in 10th grade, it would be their best year in school ever?
No, because this is the best classroom ever.
It's going to be the best classroom ever.
I don't even need to. It really is.
For me, anyway. I don't want to down talk anyone else's situation. Senior S is on here every week.
Yay, Senior.
He is asking, what's the biggest challenge of team teaching? So,
well, I can take that one. So I came back mid-year, which was like already a challenge in and of itself. And so I think for me, it was finding that like my voice in the classroom, because you don't, as the special education teacher, I mean, ideally, our kids wouldn't know who's the special education teacher and who's the regular ed teacher. But it's figuring out like how not to step on toes, but then also have your voice and also have the kids see you as a teacher in the classroom and not like an aide or just someone, your assistant, which I was called this year.
Yeah. Yeah. The kid said that she was my Yo Reynolds. She's the best assistant that you've had all year. Or kids would go, wait, so what exactly is your job? Like, what do you do? And one of the things I'm looking forward to in the beginning of the year is like starting out and being able to like blend the class so that it's our class. Where last year it was very clearly my class, at least at first, and then it kind of moved more into our class as the year went on. I know in the past, though, Senior S, that it's finding people you gel with, and so our relationship was really funny because we didn't really talk before because she was on like a different floor or something like that. And then right before she left to go to Hawaii, we all went out one night for drinks or dinner or something, and because they constantly talk about drinking.
It's graduation. No, it's graduation.
Yeah, and we had a really, really great conversation. Yeah. It was awesome, and then as soon as I heard that there was a chance she might be coming back, I started like rallying other teachers and trying to get like people to support this idea that she should come back, because I just knew it would be great, because I've worked with folks before where you're in the same classroom before, and maybe you do get to a place where you can work together, but it can take a really, really long time, and it's painful sometimes. And the kids, like if they have a different classroom management style than you do, or if they're like more lax and you're more strict, like it's really, really hard to keep that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and the kids play like a mom and dad. Like they'll ask me something and I'll say no, and then they'll go and they'll ask Reynolds. So if you have that not a great relationship with your co-teacher, sometimes that can kind of cause some tensions, and the kids pick up on that.
Yeah.
They're super in tune to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then they try and exploit that
Yeah.
stuff. The Scottish teaching ninja. She's on here every week.
I love that name.
Yeah. So,
Ninja.
how will it work in terms of the curriculum? Are the curriculums different 9th and 10th? That's really interesting because we've been rewriting the entire curriculum for
Yeah.
both of those. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that it's exciting, stressful, because something that's really great about our school is we have the autonomy to do what we would like. However, there's so much stuff out there that you start looking up stuff and then you're overwhelmed because you're what if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And Common Core standards are students should be able to read at 9th grade reading level.
Yeah.
And they should. How do I get them to read at 9th grade reading level?
Well, and it's a lot of new books that neither one of us have taught before,
Mm-mm.
or stuff that I haven't read in a really long time. So 10th grade will be, so 9th grade will be reading The Odyssey, Merchant of Venice, which is, Merchant of Venice is the only mandatory book. Lord of the Flies, but we're going to read that as a play so that more students can read at one time. And then a short story unit and then a to be determined book, I think, so far. And then 10th grade, we're teaching Knight, which I haven't read since college, Julius Caesar, which I haven't read since college, and a whole bunch of other depressing books.
10th grade year.
It's all sad books
so sad.
this year. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
That just doesn't fit us.
No, I don't know how I make jokes when we read sad books all the time. So insert clever name. Good work.
Good.
Asked, are co-teachers commonplace in your school?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Are co-teachers commonplace in our school?
Commonplace, common practice?
Yeah, I don't.
Co-teachers. Yeah, well, we have English and math.
But do you feel like they're co-taught, or is it more like there's an aide in the room? I think they have been.
Okay, well, so it depends. I'm lucky enough this year to be teaching 4 classes, so I see myself taking over your class. No.
Just chilling with that.
I think that I will have the opportunity to do that. I think speaking from the special education side of it, a lot of times we're working with 4 or 5 teachers, and to be able to go into 4 or 5 different classes and be responsible for that curriculum is really difficult. So it does turn more into I'm just going to help and assist. But that was part of my dream on the dream team. Was being able to do that and being the having that consistency. And that's something that I saw when I went to Hawaii that I really liked, is the co-teachers were together all day. It was a much bigger school, but they were together all day, and I liked that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you have a teacher that you're teaching with for one period a day, it's how much prep. It's hard to even find time to prep with those individuals to make sure that you are co-teaching a class. So it's probably better off if they are just the main teacher and then you are assisting where needed or something like that.
Yeah.
Let me see. Maggie May 523 said, what are some of your favorite first day of school activities to get to know your high school kids and build community that aren't cheesy? Man, I
love cheesy, though.
Do you really? I'm totally anti-cheesy. So this is not going to work. No. So what's cheesy stuff that you like doing? Or not cheesy stuff?
Well, I don't know. You go, and then maybe in my head what I think is cheesy is really cool, actually.
So I'll be honest. I skipped the whole getting to know you activity, right? Because for a couple of reasons. One, because we have new freshmen that we're teaching that have come from all over the city, and most of them don't know one another. Now, if they came from our middle school, some of those kids know one another. So it's kind of an unfair advantage. So if you already kind of know people, you're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel willing to get up. I remember in high school thinking there's no way I'd ever want to stand up in front of everyone and talk. That just sounds terrifying because I didn't know anyone either. So I skipped that, and I try and put most of the focus on me so that the kids don't feel the focus on them. And I do that by the first day of school. I first tell them how excited I am to be there, that I'm thrilled to be their teacher, that I want to have a great year, that if they need anything, they come and ask me, whether that's their locker is stuck or they don't know where to go for lunch or they lost their schedule or they don't have a tie or whatever it is, come talk to me. I'm a safe place to do that. And I have them write letters to themselves. All ninth graders, first day of school, write letters to themselves that I give to them for sometimes 5 years later at graduation, and I hand those back out then. And so that gives them a place to like talk about themselves, but like just have a class where like there's not a bunch of rules being thrown at you, you're not trying to be intimidated, and you don't have to feel called out. The first project that we do, though, that we've agreed to do this year is in that second week of school, they will have a project due that's called Your Life Odyssey, and they have to map out their lives in 10 events, right, from birth to now. What 10 events made you into the individual that you are? And this works really, really well because the kids get to think ahead of time about like the kind of individual they want to portray themselves to be, because they're ninth grade, and so everyone's fronting most of the time anyway. But also it gives us the chance to really learn about the students and find out like what's home life like, what kind of sports do you like, what kind of video games do you like, what kind of awful experience have you been through in your life. Because they're really, really telling. Kids will just spill tons of stuff about themselves on these projects, and that's a really great way to get to know your students without like on the fly like, what's your favorite sport, what's your favorite ice cream color? Because I feel like in ninth grade you're like, I'm too cool for ice cream, like I don't even eat ice cream. I eat, I don't know, cool, I don't know what's cool.
Wrap chips.
Yeah, they do have
That's
those wrap
thing.
chips at the corner store. Yeah. Welcome to the inner city.
I saw someone making a good point about co-teaching. This is multitasking on a different
it
level.
is. That's why I have the not too
so
secret
sorry.
wife helping me.
Sorry, world.
All
Talk.
right. While my wife's looking for that, I am going to say that. Oh, there it is. For Miss Younkers. Sorry, these shoot by.
And I'm helping the kids build a relationship. Oh.
How are you planning on helping the kids to build relationships with her? Oh, okay. So,
Kind of goes into that.
one thing that I do all the time, I forget who that was. I really apologize. Carmen. Carmen,
Hey, Carmen.
One of the ways that we do that is, one, I try to like always shine a light on whoever my co-teacher is, right? Even if I don't particularly like gel with them. So this will be easier because I feel like I can speak like honestly. But to just say like, oh, Miss Younkers does stuff like that, or Miss Younkers should tell you this really great story about herself when she did this thing, or where she lived, or where she worked before. And I think if the kids see that I really, because it's fairly easy for me to connect with students. It's just, that's like the gift that I have. Like planning class and teaching content, not always connection. That's what comes easy. So I always feel like the kids will like people because I like them or don't like them, which is why I always try and talk positively about all of the staff in my school. And like, if the kids are like dogging a teacher, I'll say, you know, they're really great. Do you know that outside of school, they're really good at this? Or like, I really like this about them. They always are happy at parties. They're always, you know, they're always willing to help me after school if I need anything. And that really helps too. Plus, Miss Younkers often eats lunch in my classroom with me and the 30 students that I eat with all the time. And that just helps build relationships also, because she's really patient with guys. And I think they get to see that pretty early on, like that you care and that you're going to be really consistent and not like be like shushed away by someone if they want to get rid of you.
And I think that's why I like being a special education teacher, is that relationship building piece. Because as the second teacher in the classroom, I have the opportunity, like someone's having a bad day and Reynolds will be like, go to the hallway, and then I can step outside or he can step outside. So I feel like I don't feel like we really had an issue with me trying to build relationships with them.
No, I feel like just took time.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to just take time. And so, and that's the beginning of every year. Like, it's so funny to see those kids that first day and you don't know any of them. Why Nieto?
Sure.
All right. How do you plan to teach? What will your co-teach, will you co-teach or teach the whole class and then create small groups for extra support? I'm searching for ideas on how to build relationships with my co-teacher. That's really great idea. And I've tried a lot of different things. And I think we're planning on trying something different this year. Different. So what do you...
So I think so it's different, right? So when you co-teach like math, you can be like, okay, you're going to take these 5 problems or you're going to do the warm-up. I think in reading, it's a little more difficult because it's more organic, like conversation will come up. And so you kind of just have to like jump in. Like one of us can always lead. I can do vocab. That's a given. But I think like our idea, what we've been talking about, we've been playing around with small groups, but for our guys, that doesn't necessarily make the most sense, I don't think, because they're pretty homogeneous in a sense, like most of them, if not all, are all struggling readers. So if we put them in groups, you don't really have like strong readers to help bring up the struggling readers. So for us, it's like going to probably be whole class instruction. And then we did talk about doing some like interventions in place. If anyone knows a program, I can throw that out there.
Do it.
That they can speak highly about. Let us know. We did talk about doing some kind of like interventions on Wednesdays. We have half days, which I'm sure Reynolds has talked about. So we only like 25 minutes. So it's normally like independent reading time, but that totally allows for time for like intervention. So if a student's struggling with something or didn't get something or needs, some like phonics, which you don't really do at the high school level, it totally gives us the time to do that if that comes up.
Yeah. One of the things I'll say I've noticed even in the little time, from last year that we taught together was and I think this speaks to that question, because I think it depends on the type of individuals or the personalities that are together in the classroom. So there have been teachers in the past that I've done like sent out, or like they've taken like a small group of students and I've taught a different group of students so that we could, with the idea of being able to differentiate our instruction. But what would often have happened is if I didn't trust that teacher was going to really do all the work, if they were going to like give the kids the answers or be too strict or too soft on the kids, like you're sending a lot of trust to another part of the room or to another classroom when you do that. And it can make, when they come back, like, did they learn everything I wanted them to learn? Are the kids going to be able to like then go on to this next part of the lesson? So one of the things I really enjoyed about our relationship was like the going off of one another. Mm-hmm. And so one person's teaching and then someone else might chime in with something, and then that might lead to a different conversation. Or if a couple of, I think that's what I want to say about that. So I think it depends on the type of individuals. That needs to be a conversation between the co-teacher and the two co-teachers to come up with what kind of thing they want to do.
And it depends on your space too, because there's so many different like models of co-teaching. If you can do parallel teaching where maybe you're splitting up and you're each doing something different, but for us, our classroom's square. So like if I'm talking on one side and you're talking on the other, it's going to be a disservice to our students and not helpful. Question?
Yeah. Kafupaland asks, what's up, Kafupaland?
Yeah.
So, are you in the same class at the same time, or? Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Yeah,
where's she coming from?
She's in Australia.
What?
If so, does your school have special funding to cover this? We have no special funding. We have, Philadelphia keeps getting, so we're in West Philadelphia, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in general just keeps getting their funding cut year after year after year. And so the idea, even when we don't need any special funding, we're going to literally try and make something from nothing and try and, use donors choose to get some of the supplies that we need and make stuff if we have to, and like just kind of do what we can with what we have already. And I just think that with the mindset that we're going in, where we're like taking on that challenge instead of feeling daunted by it, that's kind of exciting for me. But we will be in the same room at the same time. So it'll be the two of us and about 30 students. And so I'm thrilled to get into that.
Yeah, no special funding. We have the full spectrum of special education services. So we have, this is one of the co-taught classes. And always have like a resource room and self-contained. So.
I don't know what Miss K by day, you're saying, I'm sorry, this keeps jumping around, but I disagree. As a gen ed teacher in an inclusion classroom, I always plan, it keeps jumping up.
With co-teaching in mind, I'll take the intro.
And let my co-teacher read her task. And then, hold on, there's more. In my experience, working together rather than...
Then one teach, one assist?
Yes.
I help my students think of us as the teachers, yeah. So similar. I don't know what she disagrees with, though. I don't know what he said.
Check out Drew's 30 days of co-taught classrooms. I will so Miss K by day is also saying Julie Costin has a book called 30 Days of Co-Taught Classroom. That has a lot of great information about different classroom methods for best practice, which is great. So, like, my wife's writing that, the Not So Secret wife is writing that down now, because it has been something that we're trying to, I'm always telling new teachers, like, don't recreate the wheel. Find something that already worked for someone else and see if you can tweak that idea instead of just trying to brainstorm some brand new idea that may work or not work. Like, try and find something that already worked, at least for someone else, and then see if you can work that into what you're doing. And that's what we've been doing in our planning as well. Let me see. You can find the one on there, but then Kafubal and follow-up was, do you guys only teach novels, or are there text forms in your curriculum? So we can teach anything we want. In my regular ed classes, I used to teach 5 to 6 novels a year, plus the boys would have to do 3 to 6 independent reading books a year. So it's a lot, but I only taught literature. They didn't have the writing portion was a whole nother class, which was really awesome. And for this class, it will be similar to that, but what our plan is teach things that are like, have more stuff that's like periodical, like nonfiction based, right? So the studies that we've been talking about show that since we're an all boys school, that boys like reading things like newspaper articles, magazine articles, more than like a book of fiction. And reading that, and there's tons of really great lesson plans on like NewYorkTimes.com or CNN.com. And what was some of the other things we were talking about doing?
ReadWorks?
Yeah, you want to talk about that? What that is?
Like, yeah, so there's a really great website called ReadWorks. It has all different articles, and like they're all leveled, so you just go in and you can choose. And then there's article and maybe like 5 or 6 questions. It's great for progress monitoring for special education students.
Which is one of our goals, too. If you want to talk about that a little bit, like how we're planning on like measuring success in the classroom.
Yes.
So far as we've gotten.
So.
What's the idea anyway? What's the goal?
Okay, so I mean, special ed. I bring only like my lane is special education. So Reynolds is really wonderful teaching with. However, I always most days I bring in like that special education side of stuff. So like data drives everything in special education, and something that we're not very good at least last year we weren't, is kind of figuring out where our guys were and where they were going and kind of keeping better track of that. I was for my specific caseload, but that was only maybe like 10 guys out of the 2 classes that we taught of like 24. So
well, plus we get kids in the 9th grade if they're new to our school.
Yeah. Sometimes
they'll come in and their IEPs, so their individual education plan doesn't follow them, right? So if I don't know what they call them in other places in the world, but ideally, you have a case manager, and they help to formulate a plan that says, like, this student needs these types of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Accommodations?
Yeah, accommodations in the classroom. Like, so where they should sit, how much homework they should have.
Best teaching practices,
yeah,
normally.
Essentially.
It's like a list of best teaching practices.
And those don't always follow the students very closely, nor do any test scores. So they might show up at our school, and we find out 3 months in that they had like an IEP the whole year, and we didn't know about it. And so the idea is for us to somehow come up with a mark of where they are in the beginning of 9th grade, and then measure them all the way through to the end of 10th grade, so that we can make sure that they're making progress the whole way. And then when they're done 10th grade, like have an idea of like where they were. And then that will help inform how we go and do things in the future as well.
Yeah. And having the students be a part of that is huge. Having them take that ownership. And I think too, like, when we were on that phone call with that teacher the other day, we were saying like keeping it 100. I sound so weird saying that. Keep it at 100 with the kids. Like, hey, you're on 3rd grade reading level. That's not okay. So this is what we're going to do. You're going to need to pay attention because we're going to take you to the next grade level. Like, that's what we want to do, and that's why we're here, and that's why you're here, and get invested in it. I think just talking to them about that, nobody ever does. Everyone wants to like tiptoe around it, and I've had pretty good experience with like one of my students was on a 3rd grade reading level 7th grade. When he graduated 8th grade, we bumped him up to almost 7th grade. So that was like huge jump. We were using a program. That was really great about measuring too. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point too, and like keeping it real with your students, like not letting. Sometimes kids will be in a class and they'll act like, I don't even need to be in here. This isn't like, I can read, and it's like, no, you can't. Like your reading level's much lower than where it should be. But the exciting part is that we are going to do every single thing that we can as our pleasure to help you get to where you need to be. And I'm stoked to be able to make that jump for you, because it's going to blow your mind by the end of next year where your reading level is. So it's exciting.
I think too, we have the power to be like, you were chosen to be put in our class, which I really like this year.
Yeah, I missed what you said. I'm sorry, I was reading that thing and I can't multitask at all.
That's what I said. I'm really bad at this. I got to talk you.
I'm literally the worst.
I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, when they say like don't text and drive at the same time, no problem. I couldn't do that anyway. Like,
I'm so sorry, everyone. We'll get it together.
Miss K was also asking. She was saying, Miss Younkers, will you talk about your experience in inclusion versus self-contained? She's thinking about changing from special ed or over to special ed from gen ed.
Okay. So I don't know where you're coming from, like where you're like, if you're in suburban, rural, urban. I feel like that plays a big difference. Special education, a lot of the time in the inner city, you wear so many hats. I love it, but it can be really stressful because a lot does fall on you, and sometimes you don't get to actually teach, which is what you went to school to do, is to be a teacher. But there's so many other things that come into play, like case management, IEPs, behavior issues, being pulled out for meetings, for testing. So at our school, where we test students, we write the IEPs. So at some schools, though, there's like case managers and then there's teachers. That's in an ideal world. I wouldn't have to be out of the classroom at all, but sometimes those days happen where like I have to be out of the classroom because I'm testing for a student for an upcoming IEP. My self-contained experience, so what that looked like, my first few years in teaching in Philadelphia, I started off as like a learning support teacher for middle school, so I was this learning support teacher for 7th and 8th grade. That was insane. I was supporting a lot of teachers, and I was only one person. And then it kind of turned into, there was like a growing need in emotional support. So then they made like a self-contained emotional support class, and it was like me and 5 students, which is, once again, not ideal. And it was like there weren't even like truly emotional support students. They were just like the bad kids that they stuck in one classroom. And that was horrific. That was a rough go. My kids were great most days. My self-contained in Hawaii was really different. It was a life skills classroom, community-based instruction. So we went out once a week. That was really amazing. I had support staff there that helped me. It really depends, like what. Ideally, I love teaching with a co-teacher. I think that it benefits not just the special education students, but also to your like bubble students, those students that are struggling. And if you can figure out that partnership, and it just benefits having 2 teachers in the classroom, being able to walk around, answer questions while one of you is teaching. It just like, if someone's struggling with something, you can point it out. For me, I really love teaching special ed, and that's always been on my heart. But it's like teaching stacked under a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And I think
that's a really winded answer.
No. I think it was good because it was making me think of a lot of different, like, giving an idea of, like, depending on where you're teaching, you like maybe you want to make that jump, and maybe you want to investigate it before you do it.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the freedom that kind of like, or the, I don't know, the magic that we got for this year to be able to like create our own class and do that. But one of the things I think that you pointed out that's really important to me is those students that would typically fly under the radar, and they will now get extra help because there's 2 people in the class. And what happens a lot of times, I think, in some of these classes is that like the students will get really like, they act out because they are below level. So if you ask me to read, I'm going to read like in a funny way or trying to amuse everyone because I want to take the focus off the fact that I can't read very well. Yeah. And with 2 teachers, like with one teacher, that can like, those kids become like a vortex of your energy. They like they're like a black hole of time and energy because they need so much. And with 2 teachers, you can really like, someone can be handling that situation and the other person can be hitting those kids that are like, that usually fly under the radar, that don't get enough time and energy. And I think that is huge because I mean, I think those kids really need a lot of time and energy for a reason. I don't discount it at all. Like you're acting out. I get it, man. You're 14 and you're being a spaz, like we can handle that.
Behavior is all communication. So when you're having like a behavior issue in your class, that student's communicating to you somehow, you just need to figure out what it is. And a lot of times, I feel like, I don't know where I was going with this.
It was probably the answer to all things in the world.
It was, and then it escaped me.
If it comes back to you, I'll jump into Miss Jones' 2nd grade is.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
You were going to say Miss Jones' 2nd grade?
No, I was going to say. Oh wait. No, look, you can't talk. You can't.
We're learning how this is going to work this year. This is what it's going to look like.
Welcome to our classroom. Yeah. This is what it looks like to be a student.
I'm going to read her name again and see if it comes back to you. Hello, Miss Jones, 2nd grade. No. Is asking, do your students keep portfolios of their work throughout the year? If so, are they electronic or hard copy? Have we talked about this yet?
We had the drawer. You had your drawer of work. I like portfolio work because when the parent comes in, you can pull stuff. However, with 14, 15-year-old boys,
stuff gets lost.
Like
their backpacks look like there's stuff from 6th grade in there. Yes. Like, and I think, so one of the ways that we've talked about, not a portfolio, but just a way to like kind of track week to week is having, what do we call them on Fridays?
Reflections?
Yeah, so there's like a reflection of like, here's what I did this week. Here's what I could have done better. Here's what we learned about this week. Here's where I had a weakness or a strength this week. And questions like that they're manually filling in. We're keeping them on file. And then if you do have a parent-teacher conference, the idea is like you could take those out and show parents or talk about some of the things that you're seeing maybe consistently in those, which could just be useful. It's always interesting, and I always tell first-year teachers this as well, like listening to your students, like hearing from them like what they think is hard or what they think is too easy or what they would like to learn about or how they would like the class to kind of pivot a little bit can be interesting. You can just hear all that stuff. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but it gives the kids a place to like speak their truth, and then for you to say, well, I understand that idea, but this is actually why I do it this way, because I think this is better because you'll learn like this or whatever. Harmony Abbey asked, will you provide a menu for assignments so students can participate in a way that best fits them, technology integration?
Do we, a menu?
That's really interesting. I will say, we don't, 9th grade doesn't have access to a lot of technology in our school. In 10th grade, it becomes like a one-to-one situation. So like all students get, I think they have Chromebooks.
Yep.
And all of the students will have those until they're in 12th grade. But in 9th grade, for whatever reason, they don't get them. And so we have like computer carts. Sometimes you can get them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes someone forgot to plug it in. Sometimes someone broke a computer and put it back in there anyway, and you had no idea. Now you don't have enough computers for everyone in the class. So we generally don't do a lot of technology in our class for that.
But this year we'll have sophomores.
Yes.
And I think too we were talking a lot more about doing like project-based learning, and that's definitely an option to do projects that are like maybe one group will make a play and another one can write another chapter. Like we have that creativity and flexibility to do that.
Yeah. And I think what that will also look like is when a project is given, kind of like giving students options on like how they want to maybe like present something, or how they want, like what they want that project to look like. So oftentimes it'll be like several different choices. So I guess that's what I'm thinking of in terms of menu. Like, do you want to like act something out, or record something, or write something, or create like a visual, whether that's a PowerPoint or just old school poster board or something like that. So the kids do get that. Or sometimes if they're working in small groups, there'll be like 4 different jobs that need to be taken care of, and then they get to decide like who's going to do which job. And so,
Miss K. Wedding, congrats on getting your certs for special education. I think what you'll realize, special education it's honestly just like learning best practices, and it's going to make you that much better in your general education class. So if you didn't feel comfortable taking that job, don't feel bad about that. Like, you know what your strengths are, you know what you want, so don't. Self-contained is a lot more work. Normally, not a whole lot of curriculum. You're polling a lot more. Teachers was my best friend. So
you had money for that in your first years, huh?
No, not so much.
Were you just trying to open up that preview as wide as you could and then retyping that situation?
Free. Teachers pay teachers. Free was my best friend.
I just type awesome or great into any lesson plan. So looking for a lesson plan on the Odyssey, type in awesome lesson plan on the Odyssey and see what pops up. One swim chick who has asked questions before, so hi, welcome back, said, when did you start opening your classroom for lunches with students? My second year of teaching, I think I started doing that, because we did a project in my class that was, we turned my room into the Globe Theater, and so we used a ridiculous amount of bulletin board paper, much to the chagrin of the rest of the school. But we covered all the walls in bulletin board paper and like built projects. So like we made Juliet's casket, and we made where like Friar Lawrence lived was in another corner. We made the balcony in another corner, and it was all made out of like cardboard and like trash that I got from Home Depot. And so when I started doing that, the kids started coming in. Oh, trash. Yeah, that's what we do. Make something from nothing, kids. So in doing that, the kids were showing up early. They were staying really late, and they started coming in during lunch. And I guess sometime around that time, I just started noticing that like, this is actually really great. Like, they weren't always doing work during lunch. Sometimes they would just bring their lunch into my room, or they would eat lunch and then come into my room. And it gave me a time to connect with the students. And ever since then, I've been doing it. And some schools like it, and some schools do not like it at all. And I think it really is, it's really based on the teacher. And like, so my guys know that you have to have a special hall pass from me, and the security guards that are in our dining hall know that like, if you don't see that pass from me signed with the date, then you don't let those students up. And so, because otherwise you just have guys that are like roaming around the hall, and then they go, oh no, I was just hanging with Mr. Reynolds. It's like, no, you weren't. You don't have a special pass with a headless dude on it. And so yeah, it's probably been since my second year, and it's literally like one of my favorite things that I do. Next question is from Kafupal. What is your most successful reading improvement strategy?
Oh. Well, there's so many. I'm going to say know your student. You have to know what is going to get them involved in your...
Should I say get closer? We have to sit awkwardly close to one another.
Close to each other. I'm so sorry. I lean this way, and then okay. So you need to know what your student you need to know your students, and that's like one improvement. So for us, because they're in the general education classroom, there is not a whole lot of like phonics going on because that doesn't happen in the regular education room. In all honesty, it's just building background knowledge and having them read, and I think that's the biggest struggle. So that's something that Reynolds is really great at, is getting them involved in reading and getting them to read, and they don't even realize that they're reading. And I know that's like not really a great improvement strategy, but for us, it's just getting them to read those, like, even if it's like a paragraph, even if it's like, you know, it's just getting them to read and do that consistently. As far as like other reading improvement strategies.
Well, I'm gonna go off that for a second because I think you hit on a really good point. I like that. I like when we read or we do a lot in class and the kids go, we don't even really do anything here.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really learn anything. And it's like,
Don't
I don't know if that's a compliment or if that is bad, but I feel like we do a lot of stuff in here. But last year when we read, I feel like where we really hit our stride last year was we read Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And John Steinbeck wrote that as not a screenplay, it was a script for a play that they did of the book, and it really just took out a lot of like the descriptive language, right? Which is always where the kids got lost. Every year when I would read it in class, they would just like, as soon as you start talking about how green those leaves are and how blue the water was and how dusty the air was and what that looked like in the light, I love all that stuff, and sometimes we can do close reading and really pick that apart, but most of the time they just want the story to unfold. And when you're reading it as a play, you're giving every kid a part, and with certain classes, we would like, I could walk around, because I've read this so many times, and be like, you have to be really, really angry at this part, or like, you have to be, like, your feelings just got crushed, or you're mad, like your little sister just got punched in the face. Like, whatever it took to kind of like evoke those feelings in the students, I would go around and whisper it to them. So they just kept exploding every single time that something happened. And I think the kids got really pulled into it. And then sometimes we would even play music really quietly under certain parts to kind of like amplify the emotion. And they loved it. I mean, when the end of that story comes and it's tragic.
They were so sad.
They were like,
so
what?
Sad.
That really just happened. Like, it was great because they were like invested in it. And then the class ended. And I'm always mindful of where I end stories. So that in a particular day, I want it like end somewhere where they're like, don't know what's going to happen next. And they're like, no, let's keep going. It's like, nope, that's exactly where I want to end this, because it's going to build that anticipation for the next day. Even if I have time at the end of the class where I could have got through it, nope, I'd rather end on a cliffhanger and, you know. Yeah.
I think just in high school, it's just getting them convinced to read, because they've come to us so defeated. Like, it's really like kind of heartbreaking sometimes. Like, they will say, no matter how hard I try, I can't do this. And so I think that's why they really love I'm going to speak to what they think, but they love our class because it's something that they can find success in. So.
Yeah, I think that's 100, because success in our class isn't the same for everyone, right? So even the way that we grade things, it's not like this is out of 10, and if you got 7 right out of 10, now you have a 70. It's going to be different for each kid, and I think that is really, really important. And it takes time. It takes getting to know your students, but I just think it means everything. 394 questions is asking, what are your photo novels? If you have, what are your favorite novels if you have the choice? What are our favorite novels? So
my personal favorite book, or like one that we like reading with the kids?
Let's do both.
Okay. I like The Alchemist, which I really want to read with our guys, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
I knew you were going to say that. But what about in any class ever? What was your favorite thing to read?
In any class ever? Teaching students?
Yeah.
I really like The Bronx Masquerade, which, once again, I'm trying to make.
We're going to make it happen this year.
Trying to make that all happen. I'm pretty much going to make it my best year ever by doing only the things that I like.
Well,
and making him do
who cares if the kids have the best year ever? We just want to have the best year ever.
Yeah. What are yours?
I think my, favorite books of all time. I'm going to say one of them, this totally weird book that no one ever read. It's called The Hawk and the Dove by Penelope Wilcox. And it is about monks in like the 1600s that live in England somewhere. And you think it's about this, right? But it's about something totally different. And I like it for the same reason that I liked Battlestar Galactica, right? Not a Battlestar Galactica guy. I don't go to Comic-Con. I don't play, Settlers of Catan. I'm just like not that dude. I hang out with that dude a lot, but Battlestar Galactica could have been about anything. It didn't have to be set in space and be all sci-fi. It was the story that drove it. And that's one of the things I love helping students grasp is that, like, when we read the Odyssey, right, they're like, oh, so old, it's so dumb, like, what do we care about this anymore for? And it's like, no, like, the hero's journey is the hero's journey. Whether that's Batman Begins or Avengers or, I don't know, any other movie that you like or TV show that you like, it's always been the same. Like, people have had your hurt and your celebrations in life aren't so different than most people in history on a big level, right? So, like, you either like getting your heart broken in the 1600s was just the same as getting your heart broken now, like if you were 15 years old. And I like to convey that to my students as much as possible. So yeah, and then in class, I'd say Fahrenheit 451 is one of my favorite ones to read in class. Just no one ever likes it as much as I do. I just think it's brilliant.
You just had a really great answer, but I lost you after you said Battlestar Galactica. All I think of was The Office when he's like, Bears beats.
Battlestar Galactica. Bears beats Battlestar.
That's all I think of. Great answer.
I do. My wife makes me drink beet juice sometimes, too. I have no connection with bears.
Mr. Revi is on here.
Mr. Revi, who was an old
Mr.
teacher.
Revi.
He used to be my department head, and now he's...
What's your favorite ice cream?
Favorite ice cream is mint chocolate chip, Mr. Revi.
Mine is vegan ice cream.
Wow, which isn't really ice cream now, is it?
It is.
It's ice something else.
No, listen, everyone's jumping on this bandwagon. Ben & Jerry's, I think Haagen-Dazs. There's a whole bunch more.
What is it made with if it's not made with cream?
Coconut milk.
So it's iced coconut milk.
Which is delicious. Or almond milk. I don't know what you're missing out on.
Thanks, Rebi. Thanks for creating some tension in the room. New Leaf Teaching is asking, have you guys ever heard of Nuzella? Apparently
yes.
not. You have?
I have, yes.
Oh, yeah, Too Cool for Middle School.
Yes.
We talked about that. Which has leveled articles as... I'm sorry, I can't read this one. It's on this. Leveled articles as well could be used too. I love hearing this perspective from special education and collaboration between the two of you sounds awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we're pretty great.
So... I did, well, Too Cool for Middle School talked about it when we met. So that's actually, I'm going to write it down, actually, because I'm going to look it up more, because now I'm interested that you brought it up again. But my friend at Too Cool for Middle School brought this up one time and was saying how she uses it in her class all the time because it connects kids with a level of reading that is can empower them and instead of making them feel like they are less than everyone else. Because I know for me growing up, I still do everything slow. Like I don't do, like washing the dishes, my wife will wait, like she's shaking her head right now. Because I'll get like through half of washing the dishes and she's like, could you please just move? Like literally the world's going to run out of water by the time you finish. And in school I was always really slow at reading, and I remember when those first couple of kids would get done, it would make me crazy. Yeah. And I would skim to the end or just pretend that I was done because I didn't want to look stupid or look like I was slow. And so I think that could be a really good option for us.
Thank you.
Yes.
For reminding.
What was that other question
Oh, do you invite your students
Yes.
to their... Yes.
Do you invite your students to their own IEP meetings? Can you talk about why you would do that?
Yeah, so in the state of Pennsylvania, when they turn 14, they get their own invitation. Ideally, what I would love to see happening is our students running their own meetings. So we actually created, at our school, we have a transitions class, which is phenomenal because it gives us that time to work on those transition goals and have them kind of explore and do their, sorry, I cannot multitask. I'm worse than
nice teachers.
I can multitask.
Can't see
in
what
the
I'm doing
classroom.
over here.
I know, and I know he can, which is what makes me yell at him.
I
Separate.
don't know what I'm saying.
Students-
IEPs, yes.
Yeah, leading your own IEP meetings.
So I really love running my IEP meetings. I always make sure that my students don't feel talked at. I always try to include them, even if there's like something going on. I might ask them like, "Hey, this is what's happening. These are your grades. Why is this happening in this classroom, or why is this teacher reporting this?" I try to give it a space to allow it to be a space for our students to share, but a lot of times they're really reluctant. They also don't like talking about the fact that they have a disability, which is in and of itself like a whole other conversation. So yes, they are invited. I could talk about that for hours.
Lindsay Reynolds, a great name, first of all.
Okay.
Good work. Asked, she said that she lives in Florida and she gets a lot of students, I'm going to paraphrase this,
Okay.
from Puerto Rico, Colombia, Dominican Republic, and oftentimes their IEPs don't follow them when they come to our country, and they don't get, and special education services aren't provided in the same way. And so, so a lot of her students, she feels like they slip through the cracks, and it's so rewarding to help them get services that they need. You know, I hear you, Lindsay Reynolds, because I had a student come in a few years ago, and in the first IEP meeting that he and his mom showed up to, his mom just started crying, like profusely crying in the room, and I you know, of course I asked why, because I can't not ask people like 100 questions about themselves. And she said that he had grown up in schools where like he didn't make the cut for special education services, and this was the first time that she'd ever had a meeting for him. And so he was in 9th grade, and she had never been able to get him a meeting since kindergarten, and how this was the first time. And you know, it's hard because we see a lot of students that are like that. And when I worked in Camden, say about 60% of my population spoke English as a second language. Like at home, everyone spoke Spanish because they were like either first or second generation in the country. And that's a huge hurdle to get over. And, you know, so let me say this to anyone that's dealing with that particular situation. It's really easy to see a kid come in that's in a situation like that and to think that you are going to be the one that's going to raise them up. You're going to be the one that's going to single-handedly jump in there and handle that situation. And I think that is so Hollywood, but really it takes other people. So even if you don't have a co-taught classroom, like make sure that you're touching base with the other people in your grade, that you maybe have like commonalities in your classes for that particular student or those group of students that you're I don't know, doing in your classes to help them or to help provide a certain amount of structure for them or support. And then when they go to the next grade, like going with them and talking to their new teachers and letting them know what you did last year. So that what's happening there is the whole school is surrounding this group of students or even this one student, instead of like just one teacher feeling like they're going to be the one that's going to like save that kid because, I don't know, they want to be invited to their graduation party or it's going to be part of your movie. I have no idea.
But how neat is it that there's teachers out there that are like voicing that they know that they have students that need services, that the fact that you're aware of that and you're probably already providing that student with accommodations and services, and your school should have some kind of like child find process if you refer them for special education services. I mean, I know it's, once again, ideal world.
I see Miss May just popped in here.
Hey,
What's
Miss
up,
May.
Miss May? I show your videos to Miss Younkers. Now she knows who you are.
I know Miss Fab. Look, one Fab teacher's here too.
That's what I'm talking about. That's Miss May.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
her. I know you as Fab.
I just call her Fab all the
You're
time.
only Fab.
Yeah. Delilah? Tesfaye?
Yeah.
I apologize if I said your name wrong. How do you get students to enjoy reading?
Make it as ridiculous as possible.
Pretty much, yeah. The more you make it not look like you're actually reading, the more kids will do it. So, again, playing music under stuff really, really works. Providing independent reading books, so like letting the kids pick books from Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So one of the ways, like, and again, we come from a school that does not have a lot of funding. And so, but one of the small bits of money that we get every year, we're allowed to have students like order books, or we can order books. So whether that's, sometimes we go to like, I'll go to the thrift store, or I'll go to like, my local library has books that they give away if they have like too many copies of something. I'll take some of those, or I'll look for people that are giving away books. And then I supplement that with buying books from Amazon and trying to get them as cheap as I possibly can. Because I think if kids are reading stuff that they actually like, then they'll read. So I blow through a lot of sports books in our room. So like anything about LeBron James or Jay-Z's book, Decoded, I've gone through several of those that the kids just like tear through those books because it's like, oh, this actually counts. Like I don't have to read, I don't know, Walden. I get to read Decoded, or I get to read, I don't know, 13 Reasons Why got really big last year because of the TV show. Or for kids that are like, there was a book that came out called X that was popular last year, which is Malcolm X's daughter wrote this book about her father when he was a young man. And so if they're interested in that, but like the autobiography of Malcolm X was too much for them, it was really a great way to like introduce them to new stuff. So yeah, I think find books that your kids actually want to read, and you'll have a better likelihood of reading them. And if you can't afford books, look for articles. Use like different websites to find articles about topics that your students would be interested in, because those are always like very, very timely and are great connection points for students. Scottish Teaching Ninja asked, do you do lesson plans together, and do you share and take turns? Sorry if this has been asked already. It's not been asked already, but I think it's a really great question.
We don't have to do lesson plans at
No.
our school, which
A lot of people just screamed "what"
Yes.
at the screen, I think, when they heard
However,
it.
we do lesson plan. It just doesn't look.
We don't have to put it on a piece of
we don't have to
paper.
put it on a
It
piece
doesn't
of
have to be
We have like a
set in a
curriculum,
form.
like what
Yeah.
we're going to be teaching, but it's not like in other previous schools I've had to like submit lesson plans every Thursday. In that case, yes, I was planning with my teacher.
Yeah.
I feel like we plan, we just talk a lot.
Yeah, and figure out what we want to do. And a lot of that, and the thing I love about the freedom in that is you never know when you have to pivot your lesson plan either. So maybe you did something one day and nobody got it, or you're like, that was a total failure.
Yeah.
No one got that, or everyone was crazy today, or we had a fire drill in the middle of class, and now 4 classes are ahead of the other class, or something like that. It gives us that ability to like change really quickly, but there is a plan in place. Like, so
Yeah.
what we've been writing this summer is like a curriculum map, essentially,
yeah,
right?
thanks,
Like
shout out to Mr. Rebuy. Thanks for the calendar idea.
yeah, and a
We
calendar
have a
of like,
calendar.
what day, here's all the days of the month, these are all the days that we have something that's going on with school, these are all the days that we have off, and then where are we going to fit in these lessons? And the beauty behind that is if you plan on a macro like that, then you can see, well, do I want to be done before Thanksgiving? If you're in the United States, Thanksgiving, it's a day that we eat turkey and celebrate.
No turkey.
It's kind of
No
weird.
turkey. Sorry, threw you off. Keep going.
And do you have some fake ice cream when you're on that? Afterwards for dessert? So
She's fucking high.
So what that allows you to do is like plan out and know what's going to be on what day, and it's really helpful. So yeah, we don't have to do all the lesson planning kind of stuff usually, but we do plan all of our lessons together, but just not in that traditional way. The bottom one,
Yeah.
Senior S said, "What is one strategy that each of you has learned from each other?"
Oh, I've learned so much.
I'm trying
The
to.
knowledge.
I'm trying to
Mind blown.
single something out.
Something, a strategy? Can it be like a life strategy? I feel like what I've learned from Mr. Reynolds is to just not take yourself too serious in the classroom. I feel like special education is always like, I've got to do it this way, and this is the way it has to be, and like sometimes I'm too structured, which is complementary to his
Lack of.
Sprinkle magic. That's what I'm here for.
But just don't take yourself too serious. Like, it's not, yeah, you're going to have bad days sometimes. But, like, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. It will be good, and it's going to be the best day ever.
I think it will be the best day ever. But I think from you, one of the things that I really love that you do that just sort of reminded me of this is that students will try to intimidate you often. But you never, like, back down from kids trying to intimidate. I remember we had a student last year that was I'm not leaving this classroom. I'm not doing anything that you want me to do. And she was just like, okay, well, I need you to, like, pick up your pen, or I need you to step out into the hallway. And just kept saying it until she, like, wore him down. And after it happened, I was like, dude, that was awesome. Like, I would either lose it or I would do something, like, my tactics are just much different. Like, I would just do something really silly, or I'd figure out a way to kind of break the tension. But she was like, very calmly and very patiently, like, no, this is what I need you to do. And I'm like, and it actually worked. And I was like, it just showed me also that, like, anyone can get the reaction out of a student they need them to have in that moment. So, like, we don't always get what we want, and sometimes that's good. Sometimes kids, like, they're right, we are wrong. But when you are right, or when you really need something to happen, that consistency, said in a very calm voice, where the kids aren't getting that crazy reaction, you're not blowing up, they're not in control of the situation. Like, it's, I don't know, it just reminds me of, like, when they talk about how, like, water dripping on a rock for a long enough time will, like,
weigh you down.
Yeah. Good job. Torturing the students. What was that? Carmen asked, the one from Carmen? It would be so helpful during a difficult conference, too, that parents would feel like you're picking on my child, that you have another adult backing you up. Man, so that happened last year. I think you dipped, too, because you, like, just came back.
No, listen.
You remember this going down?
Hold on. Don't throw me under the bus.
No. Not in the way. I did sound like I was throwing you under the bus, but you had just gotten back.
Yeah, I did, and it wasn't a student. It wasn't a student in our class.
Yeah.
It was a student in one of your other classes. But you're right. I think I've never had a parent be like.
That was the first time ever that I had a student,
yeah.
the mom, come in and was really mad at me. But it turned out, I know, I'm a charmer. But it turned out that, like, the story was wrong, or her perception of me was wrong. And when she left, I felt like it was great. Like, we were laughing about the situation, and I felt like it got to a really, like, a much better place than it was. But, yeah, it doesn't help that our parent-teacher conferences have, like, a lot of people in line. People sometimes wait about 45 minutes to meet with us. And so if you were a little bit pissed when you got in line, you're a lot pissed by the time you get to the front of the room.
But look at these charming faces. Who can talk them up?
I feel like it's
like
a game. Jenny J asked, do you get to play sports with kids at PE?
No, we don't have PE.
Nope, we don't have gym class in Philadelphia.
Womp.
Yeah, our kids have. It is, I think, so I'm going to start off by saying this. I think my school is fantastic. I love the administration. I think that a lot of the things that we aren't capable of doing are because they're just not part of the program. And so I think kids would benefit greatly from gym, or from being able to go outside, like, after lunch and just play basketball or whatever for a while and hang out with their friends, but we don't have that. And we also don't have the space.
No.
Like,
we do have Leadership Academy, though, which happens from 4 to 5.
Which is an after-school program.
It's like after school, and that's when they play, like, sports and stuff.
Yeah.
We could do, like, an ultimate Frisbee. I don't think anyone would play ultimate Frisbee.
I also don't play sports. So if everyone played sports with me, some kids would actually feel better about themselves. Because they would be like, wow, you're worse than I am.
I just talk smack. I don't actually play. I just tell them that I win.
Mr. Senior S said that's sad. My students have 2 PE periods a day. Dude, that's
awesome.
Like, I wish. No, my son gets 8 minutes. He's in 4th grade. He was in 3rd grade last year. He gets 8 minutes a day on the playground. Eunice Flores, I think I said that right. Probably not. Said, how often are you planning to meet? I am a high school sped mild to moderate teacher who will have 2 self-contained classes, a social studies class for my caseload and 2 co-teaching classes. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah, you
said
said
social
studies.
Oh,
So you wrote.
I teach reading.
I guess maybe what it sounds like. I'm going to take a guess.
Go for it.
They rotate. So that's kind of crazy that you have that many classes. So you know how you teach like 5 different English classes? It would be like you're teaching self-contained, a study skills, and then you would teach with someone. So that sounds like a lot. So depending on what hopefully you're co-teaching with the same teacher, that would allow for some wiggle room. Figuring out that planning piece, and that's what I was saying earlier, is so difficult. And it's so important because then as a special education teacher, you're not just like walking into a room like flung into stuff like, all right, I'm just going to wing this because I have no idea what's being taught today. Lunch, I know that kind of stinks, but like if you could meet with lunch and just kind of talk about it during lunch.
Yeah. I plan on us at least touching base every day this year. And a lot of times we'll do that. And sometimes, I think we make things into a bigger deal than they need to be. Like that planning time could be, like, depending on your experience level, could be very short and could just be like, okay, here's my plan for the week. This is what I want to do. And we could, I did say the name right. So I just think that, all right.
Stop ignoring me.
I think you want to squeeze it on the bed?
No!
No, that's why she's the not so secret what. So what am I saying? I think planning together is important.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be all the time, and I don't think it needs to take as much time as necessary. I think if I was going to do that and I wasn't with Miss Younkers all day, I think I would probably try and find out like every Tuesday we meet, or every Tuesday and Thursday we meet, or something like that, so that we had that time built in, because during the school year, your time is so fleeting and it just disappears out of nowhere. And if you don't have things scheduled, then they don't get done.
So when I taught with like 4 different people, that's what I would do. Like every Tuesday, I would meet with this one teacher, and then obviously, when you're planning a week's in advance, and sometimes things come up, you have to be flexible. But I think that's being part of, like, being a special education teacher. That's part of it.
Cool. All right. So let's do this. We're at 1 hour and 12.
Okay.
If anyone has any other questions, if we didn't get to your question, could you please put it in the comment section? I promise you I will get it back to you. But my children are coming downstairs now because they know that it's been an hour, and they're going to ask to go to bed, because my daughter is the only child in the world I know that asks to go to bed. And she's probably going to ask for more ice cream. So I really appreciate your questions also. If you have any resources for special education that you think would benefit our class this year, I'm going to go ahead and ask, and I've never asked for anything before. If you could leave that in the comment section, something for us just to kind of like look up and look through and see if it's a good fit. I'm saying goodbye. You want to say goodbye?
Oh, thanks so much.
There's Marley.
Hey, Marley.
You look tired. Is it time for bed?
No.
All right, not time for bed. It is.
Thanks, Miss K. by Day.
It's
You're
not.
so sweet.
Yeah, it's 9:15 here in
Reach out to me.
East Coast.
Sorry.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this
If
is
you.
what we do.
That-
We both.
Here it is. So that's it. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Hope you have the greatest night ever. And if you check out Miss Younkers' vlog, or blog, what is your blog?
I'm not blogging. Blogging. Polka Dots of Gratitude.
You can check her out there. I'll link it in the description below. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye.